What is up, Babylonians? Dan was here, and have we got a lit video for you today? Let's have a look at this Pyro build.
Never fear of missing out by clicking that subscribe button and becoming another member of the Babylonian family.
So you've picked your favourite class, which is clearly the Pyromancer, but you don't know how to effectively dish out that damage, but also take those punches yourself. So this build here is going to be the perfect balance, in my opinion, of both damage and damage mitigation. So let's have a look at the skills that we're going to be using first. So the first skill we're going to have a look at is probably the staple of most Pyromancer builds. So it's the Heat Wave. Now we'll go more into the mods shortly when we look at the armor, but in a nutshell, what we're going to be doing with this is setting enemies alight, causing burn to them, but also we'll be inflicting 25% extra damage to enemies that have been affected by the heat wave. On top of this, with the Akari set, we're going to be dealing a lot more damage due to the increased anomaly power that we get from using this skill on the enemies. Next up is the Ash Blast. So with this, what we're going to be using this for is freezing those enemies in place. But also, as you'll see in the skill tree, the class tree, you'll see that this is one of our main damage dealers as well. So this is both a skill that you can use in a panic. So if you're surrounded, freeze all your enemies, a bit like the Technomancer's Cold Snap. But this one we're actually going to be using more for damage. And then finally we have Overheat, which is actually probably our highest damage output skill that we have here. But it's only when it's combined with Heatwave and Ash Blast. And we'll see why shortly. We'll have a look at, let's say, the mods, the class tree next as well. But you're going to be wanting to try and use these skills sort of Heatwave first, then Ash Blast, then Overheat. So the order that are there that are on the screen. So Heatwave, Ash Blast, Overheat, repeat, and you'll be hitting over 1 mil damage with each time. Sometimes even more so, depending if you're using it in the right situation. You can hit 2 or 3 million. It is also important to note that each of these skills as well will really help you out with keeping your health up. So if you're playing in a group, using Overheat should sort of mark each and every enemy on the screen pretty much for you. So any of those enemies that die will actually give you health. But also, if you use Overheat in a panic, that will damage the enemies around you. And if there's quite a few enemies, you get quite a bit of health back. Again, with Heat Wave, as that passes through enemies, you'll be getting health back. And Ash Blast as well. This is all through, obviously, the skill life leech. So this is a class that you can actually look into getting high skill life leech to make yourself even more tankier. Now, from this clip here, you can see, so casting Heat Wave, that's dealing about 75,000 damage per hit initially. So that's just going to be on the first wave. So the next wave is going to have the benefit of the plus 25%. So that's going to do over 100,000 damage with each one. And if you get that passing through multiple enemies as well, then you're going to get the benefit from the Akari set as well from that. Now, once enemies are, you have used the Heat Wave on them, you can then go and use the Ash Blast, which will freeze them in their place. And then use the Overheat. If you haven't got your Ash Blast back, which does come back a bit quicker than Ash Blast, you can actually use Overheat to deal a fair amount of damage. But then you're going to be wanting to run up close as well and use the 2 weapons that we're going to use. So it's going to be the Death Shield and the Anamoir, which both will have Fortress and Moaning Winds, but we'll look into those next as well. So here you can see we're using 3 legendary weapons, 3 legendary armor pieces, and 2 purples. So with this, with most classes really, you don't want to use all legendary because I find that the gloves and the feet just are never any good. So if we look at, first of all, Helmet of the Akari. So with this one, it's going to be keeping the tier 3 mod on there, which is increasing the width of the firewall. That's just so you can sort of envelop more enemies in the flames. You don't have to be as accurate as without that skill. And then we've changed the second mod on there to Burnout. So that's going to make any damaged enemies they're going to take 25% more damage for 8 seconds after they've been hit by that heat wave. Now next we have the armour of the Ikari, which this one is a bit of your choice really with this one in terms of the mods. So myself on this piece, I have actually removed the tier 3 mod, which was Detonator, which means that Overheat has its skill cooldown reduced by 50%. This is actually quite useful because you can almost just bash out that Overheat every few seconds, just dealing that little bit more damage, getting a little bit more health, and interrupting enemies as well. But for me, I've actually gone for Unstoppable Force, which gives a boost of my Anomaly Power by 50% of the Resistance Piercing, just giving me that a little bit of an edge on the damage as well, really. Now next up is the Waistcloth of the Ikari. So this is the final piece of the set that we're using today. With this one, we've actually removed the second mod from here, which was originally Irradiation Wave, which was for Heat Wave, inflicts the weakness on enemies affected by the skill. Now weakness will actually reduce the damage that you take from the enemy, so it makes them, well, weaker. But for this build, I didn't want that. I wanted to try and increase the damage on this one, so I went for Captain Hunter. So that's an extra 25% damage on elites, just to try and help take down those captains, broodmothers, etc. Just try and take them down a lot quicker. Now, because we're on the third and final piece of the Ikari set that we're using today, let's have a look at the set bonus. So that is active. So what that does is every enemy damaged by Heat Wave grants 50% anomaly bonus for 10 seconds. So with that, you're going to want to try and hit as many enemies as possible. So for example, Chemplant. When the door opens on Chemplant, revealing the 3 elites, if you cast that in there, your anomaly power is going to go up massively. So cast that, and then if you cast your Ash Blast and then your Overheat, the damage you're going to do is insane. So with that, just keep casting Heat Wave as many times as possible. So for this build, I've got it as 2, but you can actually get more than 2 Heat Waves. I believe it might be, it's up to 4 Heat Waves, I believe you can get. So then you can get as many enemies as possible, and you can stack those on top of each other as well. But remember, it is only the 25% extra damage for 8 seconds that stacks, and not the 50% anomaly power. So that's per enemy is the anomaly power, but the vulnerability does stack on the enemies that you cast it on. So if you cast it twice on an enemy, that's 25% twice over. Now onto the gloves, which although are not perfect due to the attributes that you can see on there, so we've got anomaly power, close range damage, skill life leech. I'd prefer to get rid of that close range damage, swap that out for the cooldown reduction. But the gloves are all about Ash Blast here really, so increasing the range by 66%, able to spread across to more people on the map. And then Death Sentence, which allows the weapon damage and anomaly damage against enemies affected by the skill is increased by 40% for weapon and 30 for anomaly power. So this is great to actually help out teammates as well, because it's not just your damage, it's in general. But also this is brilliant for when you're using Ash Blast and then you use Overheat, you get that extra 30% added damage onto there as well. And onto the booties. So again, they're not the perfect attributes. I like to see anomaly power and then status power replaced with possibly skill life leech, and then we've got cooldown reduction. But with these, we've gone for more of an Overheat mod set on this one. So we've got Phoenix Force. So each additional, earn additional 6,000 anomaly power per status consumed by the skill. So if it consumes 1 burn and 1 ash, that's 1,200 there. Stacks up to 10 times, so that's up to 120,000 that you can claim from that alone. So that's going to help out once you've used the skill. You then get to use Heat Wave again, so that's going to help with adding damage with your Heat Wave. And then we do have the Master Consumer on there as well. So it consumes either burn or ash to do the damage, but if it consumes both of them at the same time, so if you've gone your Heat Wave and you've done your Ash Blast, you're going to get a massive bonus of 150% damage on the enemy as well. So that is where you're going to get your huge numbers. So Heat Wave, Ash Blast, then Overheat, and you're pretty much guaranteed to get over 1 million with that right there. So now looking at the class tree, so with this you've got the standard melee does burn, of course, and then your healing mechanic is whenever an enemy marked by your skill are killed, that's when you get your health back. And then if we move on to the small nodes now, so getting Magma Golem, we're getting Warm Up for it reduces the Ignite skill cooldowns by 15%, allowing us to use our Heat Wave a lot quicker. And then we move on to, again, it's going to be another Golem. And then we've got Meltdown, which burn will inflict 20% more damage to enemies, then onto another Magma Golem. And then we're going to increase here our weapon damage and anomaly power by 5%, so we're only going to benefit from the anomaly, really. And again, another Magma Golem here. And then moving on to, again, Let Them Burn, which does another 20% longer. Enemies will be on burn, then Magma Golem. Unquenchable, increases your skills life leech, which is very important for this build. Doubles the skill life leech when under 30% of max health, which is amazing. For when you're on low health, you can just get all that health back pretty quickly with an overheat. We've gone for the 2 nodes here. Again, decreasing the time before you get your skills back. And Magma Elemental to increase your armor and resistance piercing by 45%. Then we go to Anomalous Lava, which gives armor 45% extra for 10 seconds every time you cast that heat wave. So that is what's going to be keeping you alive with this build. So then moving on now, we're looking at the Distant Flame. Again, this is just for anomaly power. So 2.5% for every one of those Magma Golem class nodes that we've got. Get there in the end. And then what we're going to do now is move up into the Ashbreaker one. So the moment burn ends on an enemy, inflict ash. That's just going to hold people in place for you. It's going to give you a bit more time for your skills to replenish so you can use them again. We have to move on to the weapon damage here, which we don't really want, but we have to use that one. But we've jumped into resistance piercing there as well. And here, activating immobilized skills increases your anomaly power by 45%. Again, that's going to give you a massive buff with your damage. So this is a class that's all about damage, but definitely has the survivability in there as well. Now, the tactic you're going to want to use here, so as you can see from the clip, is you're going to be using your Heat Wave. So at the moment we're waiting for the cooldowns to come back on the Ash Blast and the Overheat. We can get the Overheat to come back a bit quicker, as we've said before, there is that skill for that. But we're happy with this, or personally I'm happy with this to last a bit longer on the cooldowns. So we're using our Heat Wave, then we use the Ash Blast, and then we're using Heat Wave again if we need to continue setting those enemies alight, and then using the Death Shield and the Animoire. Both of them have Fortress on, both of them have Moaning Winds on, and that is going to be what's dealing our damage. As you can see there, a nice 1.3 million dealing our damage whilst we are waiting for our skills to come back. So always try and use the Heat Wave as much as possible as well. So like I say, it is inflicting weakness on the enemies, so you are going to be dealing extra damage to those enemies once they are lit. Plus you'll be getting the benefit of the anomaly power when you're using the Moaning Winds as well. Also, so if you, for any reason, have your Heat Wave, your Ash Blast, but not your Overheat, which you probably shouldn't get in that situation, but obviously with the Ash Blast, that is going to help you increase your damage with the Moaning Winds as well. But for this, I'm just happy to go through the cycle nice and slow, keeping myself alive by damaging the enemies with the Heat Wave as often as possible, trying to get as many enemies all at once as well. Because obviously the more enemies you have on fire from your Heat Wave as well, you get that 50% boost in your anomaly power as well. And I'm going to be honest about this now, I don't think you're going to get any speedruns done with this build, but what you are going to do is get that high damage and the survivability. So as you can see there, those alphas, they all died just with one cycle. So Heat Wave, Ash Blast, Overheat. you are going to be able to survive any of the expeditions at CT15. You're going to obviously have to get close to the enemies to get them with your Moaning Winds and with your Heatwave, but you can quite easily do it. You're going to survive as long as you play it right and you just keep that damage up. So with this, I've aimed for a high damaging, high survivability build, and that is what we've come out with. So the time on this one was a nice healthy, I believe, 7 minutes, so we'll skip forward to that in a moment. But this is definitely a class that I recommend you use as a Pyro. And there we go, that's Stargrave survived there with 7 minutes 14. Now, I'm going to say that, yes, you do need the Akari set for this class, but I feel like that is the same for pretty much all Pyro builds. I will look into seeing if we can do a budget build that has survivability and decent damage, but we're never going to hit the highs of what we do when we have the Akari set. Well, thanks for watching anyway. Keep yourself safe. Enjoy.